Hi, ladies and gentlemen. This is Steve Harney, the founder of Keeping Current Matters. Welcome to today's deep dive. I really appreciate you taking some time out to really truly understand what's going to be taking place with prices for the rest of this year and going into next year. Because it's going to be important for all of us, and most important, it's going to be to your clients. Because they're still a little bit nervous about what's happening with prices, because there's some craziness in headlines out there. So I want to go ahead and spend the next half hour really going deep on what's going to happen to prices and as we move forward through this year and heading into next year. Before we get started, I just want to make sure everyone knows that there's a free webinar tomorrow, How to Be the Local Expert. KCM has listened to you. You've asked us for more local data, and we've started that process. We're on that journey for you. So take a look at tomorrow's webinar, and you'll see how much local data you can bring in. And we're going to keep on trying to amplify that and intensify that data as we move forward. But ladies and gentlemen, please take a look at the webinar. You'll get some really good information about what's taking place in your local market and slides to help you with that. Now let's go back to today's deep dive. 2023 home prices, what has happened in the first half of this year and what will happen in the second half, and we have a couple of forecasts going forward. As you remember, we're going to do a little bit of review on last week's, just to catch everybody up, to make sure your head's in the right space. This is the 48-year average. It doesn't include this year and it doesn't include last year, because last year was a little bit of an anomaly, which we'll cover in a second. But this is normal. Over the last 48 years, this is what happens to prices. As the spring buyer's market comes in, prices actually rise month over month at a higher number. Then as the summer hits and demand lessens to a degree, then what winds up taking place is the prices, month over month, prices don't rise as much. They don't depreciate, but the level of appreciation is decelerating. And we're going to come back to that point a little bit later on. This is what happened last year, as a refresher. At the beginning of the year, we were blowing away the 48-year average. It was an unhealthy amount of appreciation the first couple of months last year. And what that necessitated was us turning around and saying, hey, we have to make a correction. During that correction, a lot of headlines were saying crazy stuff. And the impact that had on the consumer was we went into this year with a higher percentage of Americans thinking prices were going to fall than any other year since this study's been done, 2010. And it almost doubled any other year. So I want you to understand that we were coming into this year with a lot of fear of your buyers. Now, I know interest rates and the mortgage lock-in effect is stopping some people from putting their house on the market, but this fear is also stopping some people. And I want you to understand that though it's gotten better since last December, still in the latest survey, 1 of 4 still believe prices will depreciate. Now, again, if a homeowner believes that prices are going to fall, or a buyer believes prices are going to fall, they ain't buying nothing. So it's important for us to really understand what has taken place so far and what's going to take place. We have to alleviate that fear from them. So let's take a look at the prices in 2023 so far. Here's the Case-Shiller price index. This is a repeat sales index. This is actually saying how much. The good news about this is saying how much did individual houses increase or decrease. The bad news for this, as you can see, the last month they've recorded is May, because it takes them time to do that calculation after houses sell. So you would probably want at least June's information and maybe even some July information. No, it takes them time. But what we believe here at KCM is not the speed of the information we're giving necessarily, even though we're called Keeping Current Matters, but the accuracy of the information. I'd rather give good information in a little bit of a lag than poor information right away. So we really look at the repeat sales indexes, and Case-Shiller is a big one. So let's dive into the Case-Shiller index for this month. And what you can see year over year, up in the upper right-hand corner, we can see that prices for the first time in a long time dropped below what they were last year. Now again, remember, this is May compared to last May. What was happening last May? I showed you that on a chart just a little bit ago. Last May, things got crazy. Some of the highest prices we've ever seen. So compared to last May, we haven't really caught up yet, but we we're close. A lot closer than a lot of people are going to predict. And I have it broken down here, the cities that actually saw depreciation year over year. But if we look month over month, a more recent look of what's happening in each one of these cities, if we look at the month over month, we can see 19 of the 20 cities have already shown appreciation. They're starting to show it month over month. The only city that hasn't is Phoenix, and we'll talk about the Phoenix in a second, all right, as an example, all right, but Phoenix, and they've only dropped 0.1% month over month. So year over year, those headlines are going to be a little bit scary, but in reality, that's comparing now to last year. Let's talk about where prices are going right now, month over month. Now, here's a graph, a chart that I wanted to show you. I think it's important. Those are the 10 cities in that year over year showed depreciation from the chart I showed you a few slides ago. That middle column is where they stand month over month. And again, we can see that every one of those cities are starting to show appreciation again, except for Phoenix. Now, when we look at Phoenix, we can look up there and we can see that, well, this is the appreciation or going back to March 2020. How much of houses appreciated? Well, it's kind of interesting because I really can't feel bad for Phoenix. I know they're having a little bit of a struggle right now, but since March of 2020, prices in Phoenix are up 54% in 3 years. And if we look at each one of those cities that show year over year change, and now they're coming back, but if we look 3 years back and say where do they stand today compared to March of 2020, every one of those cities are fine. So this whole fear that, you know, you could buy a house and lose money, well, if you bought it last May, you're just about coming even in a lot of places. Some places not yet, but you're also sitting on tremendous appreciation, anyone who bought it 3 years ago. And the people who bought it a year ago, things are heading in the right direction. And what will wind up taking place, all they have to do is hold on. And they'll start seeing levels of appreciation also. Now, I don't want to just give you those 10 cities. I wanted to give you every city that Case-Shiller covers. Some of those numbers are astonishing. Tampa is up 63.8%. They lead it. Miami's up over 60%. What we're looking at here, ladies and gentlemen, is I think San Francisco, who had already had a tremendous run, is the lowest increase in the last 3 years, 27.6. That's because their prices were going up long before the last 3 years. And they probably fell a little bit more over the last year. But still, ladies and gentlemen, if we look at the 3 years, the last 3 years, as a nation, up in the upper right-hand corner, as a nation, prices were up 41.8%. That's not just those 10 cities, that's the entire nation. So why is that important? Well, the major reason it's important is the fact that, hey, you know, homeownership is a wealth builder. We always tell you that. Families' wealth is dramatically tied to their homeownership. And this is giving you an example over the last 3 years why that is. Now, I'm not expecting appreciation like that over the next 3 years. We'll cover that in a second. But ladies and gentlemen, there are times that things are relatively flat, 4 or 5% appreciation. And then there are other times that you make a lot of money by owning a house. Your net worth goes up pretty dramatically. So let's take a look at some other indexes, because I don't want you thinking we're only looking at Case-Shiller. I don't want you, somebody say, well, that's what Case-Shiller says. Maybe somebody else says something different. So I want to show you a preponderance of evidence that, yes, prices went up too high at the beginning of last year, the left-hand side of the graph. They adjusted last fall and winter, the middle of that graph, and now they're starting to appreciate again, the right-hand portion of that graph. So that's the FHFA prices. And understand that every single home price index looks at data a little bit differently. They look at only, Case-Shiller looks at everything. The FHFA only looks at government sponsored loans. Some will look at like a modified version of that increase. So they have different methodologies that they use to come up with it. But what are they all saying? Well, that's FHFA. It's not that much different than what Freddie Mac is saying. Too much appreciation last year. That was corrected, and now we're having normal appreciation now. What does Black Knight say? Same thing. What does Zillow say? Same thing. So again, we're trying to give you a preponderance of evidence that what we're saying, things got out of hand at the beginning of last year, a needed correction took place, that correction is over, and we're heading back in the other direction. Now, I'm not saying as we move forward, we might not have 1 month that's a red bar, maybe. I don't think so, but maybe. But that call for we're going to see 15, 20% depreciation, which we covered last week, no, that's not going to happen. Now, in order to make it easier for you to share, because that's one of the big things that KCM tries to do, is instead of you showing, oh, and look at this graph, and look at this graph, and look at this graph, we broke it down. We put the 3 major home price indexes on one graph here. So you can show this to a homeowner at a listing presentation, you can sell it to a buyer at a buyer presentation, you can put it in your social media, you can do whatever you want to do with it. But we wanted to give it to you all in one slide, 3 of them. We couldn't fit all 6 in, but we gave you another slide with the other 3. This is probably the most recognizable names in the home price index. And Zillow is very recognizable. I'm not arguing that, but we all know that some people, think that Zillow is the greatest thing that ever happened in the world, and some people think that Zillow is the devil incarnate. So Zillow is something we like to look at, and when we see that their data also agrees with everyone else's data, and again, this isn't forecast out, right? This is what's already happened. This isn't a zestimate. This is their data of what already took place. And all 6 home price indexes agree. Again, I'm going to repeat it. Things got crazy at the beginning of last year. There was a correction. We're going back to normal appreciation now. So, if we look at it quarter over quarter, every one of those was month over month. But even if we look at it quarter over quarter, which is the way Fannie Mae does it, they don't do a monthly home price index, they do a quarterly one, they're showing the same thing. Through the beginning of last year, things were high, and even the year before in 2021. Then the second half of last year, the 3rd and 4th quarter, there was a correction, and now we're headed back again to appreciation. A much more level appreciation. And let's take a look at that. The black bars there represent that 48-year average I showed you before. The orange bars look at the appreciation January through May last year. The green bars show the appreciation this year. We can see that this year's appreciation is much closer. As a matter of fact, in the first 2 months, it was less than normal appreciation, the 48-year average. And we're much closer to the 48-year average in the next 3 months. And I think that green bar is going to keep on getting a little bit closer to that black bar because I think we're going back to a normal market where we can look at 48-year trends. The last 2 years, actually from the middle of 2020 to the middle of 2022, we call them the unicorn years here at Keeping Current Matters. That was just crazy appreciation. And now we're going to go back to more normal appreciation, which is good. Again, if you want to break it out just the 48-year average to what's happening right now this year, we gave you that slide also. Now again, we give you a bunch of slides, and sometimes people might say, well, they're a little bit repetitive. Well, it depends on the point that you're making. If you want to compare it to this year to last year, the previous slide was better. If you want to just tell everyone, calm down, we're getting real close to normal appreciation, this slide is better. And it might be to different people, a different slide might be more appropriate. But we want to give you everything that you need, that no matter who you're having a conversation with, even your crazy brother-in-law that thinks real estate is going to crash by 50% in the next 2 weeks, you have enough information that, if nothing else, he doesn't yell as loud about what he believes. I don't know if you're going to change his mind. You know him better than I do, all right? But maybe you could at least soften his screaming about the situation by giving him some facts. So now let's take a look at the forecast going forward. And this is important because last year, those crazy headlines caused that fear that we talked about earlier. It caused a tremendous amount of fear. We didn't adjust when those prices were adjusting. We didn't explain it well. Well, we had too much appreciation. There's going to be an adjustment, but once we make that adjustment, everything's going to be okay. We didn't fight those crazy headlines. So this year I want to let you know what the forecast is, and I'm going to give you a little warning about what the headlines are going to be, so we're better prepared this year to handle that than we were last year. Strong price gains this spring also suggest that overall home price appreciation for 2023 is exceeding many initial expectations. That's from Selma Hive, chief economist at CoreLogic. What is she saying? She's saying, you know what they said was going to happen at the beginning of the year? Now that we're in the middle of the year, a lot of people are changing their mind. So let's take a look at some of those players. Let's look at the top table first. The Mortgage Bankers Association said in December prices were going to fall by 0.6%. They'll just change that, well, they're probably going to be flat. Fannie Mae thought in December that they were going to drop 1.5%. Now they're saying they're going to go up 3.9%. Morgan Stanley in December said that they were going to go down 4%. The latest projection is now saying, well, they're probably going to be a little flat. So again, those negative projections are turning. And the AEI, which was one of the people who were last year saying, oh, prices are going to fall 15 to 20%. That's what they said in December. Now we're saying prices are going to be up 6% by the end of the year. They went from 15 to 20% depreciation to 6% appreciation. Now, I'm not looking to beat any of those people up. Things were crazy. We were coming off some crazy years. They were using models that they've used for 50 years, and those models didn't really apply to what's happening right now, because again, they were unicorn years. You know, we've been riding horses for 200 years selling real estate in this business, a metaphor. We rode unicorns for 2 years, but the unicorns are gone. We're back to riding horses again, and they have to adjust there. One of the other things that was mentioned, Freddie Mac still showed depreciation in their last forecast, but they actually put a disclaimer saying, but to be honest with you, next forecast, we're going to probably change our mind. They actually said that in the last forecast, that for the next forecast, things are probably going to look a lot better. So I think that's pretty interesting that what's taking place there. Now, as far as going forward, there are two groups that are looking, because that's the current forecast, that's top tables for the end of this year. There are two groups that look 12 months ahead. They don't look to the end of this year. Wherever they do it, they do 12 months ahead. CoreLogic, that we really, really believe very strongly in, says that prices are going to be up 4.5% next May compared to this May. Again, kind of normal appreciation, 4 to 5%. Zillow's projecting 6.5%. And that's cool. But again, Zillow's projections in the past have been a little bit aggressive. So I don't know if we're going to hit 6.5, but even if we say that they're kind of right, we're still in that 4 to 5% range. So I think that what we're going to see is that ending this year, we're going to be somewhere between 3.5%, 4.5%, maybe 5% appreciation. And then next year, we're going to see the normal 4.5% to 5% appreciation. That's what I think is coming down the line. So now let's go back to this so we see what we're looking at here. This is crucially important. All right? If you're kind of doodling on something else or you're looking at your text message, put the phone down right now. This is crucially important to make sure we don't have the same fear going into the end of this year that we did have going into the end of last year. Here's the 48-year average. Please understand that the level of appreciation will decelerate. That doesn't mean prices are going down. It just means they're not going up as fast. People are going to look at the deceleration of appreciation and write headlines. Some will actually use the word depreciation. Prices are falling. They're not falling. They're still going up, but they're going up at a smaller percentage. But those headlines will be crazy. If we can get out in front of those headlines and explain this concept to everyone we know, hey, listen, at the end of the year, you're going to see some crazy headlines. If we warn them about that, when those headlines hit, they're saying, oh, yeah, Billy warned me about that. He said this was going to happen. Look, it's happening. That's how you build credibility, ladies and gentlemen. When you're telling what's going to happen next and not to worry about it, and here's why, that builds tremendous credibility, tremendous trust in your clients. That's exactly what you're hoping to do. So this is where we stand right now as far as the 2023 appreciation. And what's going to wind up taking place as we move forward, that green bar is going to keep on getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. That's what we're talking about there. Now, let's go over this one more time. Deceleration of appreciation is not the same thing as home prices are depreciating. It's crucially important that we get that message across. Crucially important that we get that message across. And we don't wait for the headlines to hit. We have to start talking about that right now. Because last year, we kind of missed that. So when the headlines hit, we were fighting like against the wave that was already coming in. We have to turn, we're trying to run up and down the shore, trying to pull people away from the wave. Let's let them know there's a wave that they're going to come. These crazy headlines are going to come. Pay no attention to them. Where you sit is fine. Where your blanket is on the sand is fine. All right? You don't have to do anything. Because that fear is what caused caused much of the trepidation that we entered this year in. And that cost us sales. Now, there were other things that cost us sales. The economy, the fear of recession, which seems to be going away. We'll cover that in a future deep dive. Mortgage rates. But also that fear caused a lot of people to stay tight. So let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at home price appreciation. And this is the Freddie Mac December versus the previous December, the year, all right, going all the way back to 1980. So when someone says, well, prices go up and they go down and they go up. No, they don't. That's not true. From 1980 here, and that's as long back as the data goes, from 1980 here, there was one time that prices went down, when we had a housing market crash. Prices don't go up and go down. All right? Mostly they go up. Now, sometimes they go up a lot. Take a look all the way to the right. Remember I told you the unicorn years? They went up crazy for bad reasons in 2006 and 2007. Crazy loans and, ninja loans, no income, no job, no assets. That's okay. All those days are gone. That led to a housing crash that caused depreciation, the red bars. But ladies and gentlemen, overall, things are good. You buy a house, you make money. Now, if we take a look at that, here is the average appreciation over those 42 years. And like I told you, I think that this year we might be a little bit below that number, and next year we're going to be almost exactly at that number. We're going back to normalcy. That's what's going to take place. Now, are there going to be things that are still going to get in the way? Yeah, there's things that are still going to get in the way. And the more you know about the challenges, the headwinds to the market, the better you look to your clients. So the whole purpose of the deep dive every Monday is to make sure that when you're talking to a client, you're not just saying you're an expert, you're proving you're an expert. You're building that credibility. You're building that trust. You're building enough trust in them that they'll refer you to their neighbor, refer you to their family member. Because when they were finished talking to you, they at least understood what was taking place. And that's what the deep dive is all about. KCM gives you a lot of stuff. When I was talking to one agent, they said, it's like a fire hose, I can't drink it. Well, just pick some things. And if deep dive is your thing, then be here every Monday at 11 o'clock. And we'll go deep into some subject matter that your client is concerned about. And to that point, next week we're going to go at mortgage rates. The research team is doing a lot of research. What's happened with mortgage rates? Is there a lock-in effect because of mortgage rates? What does that mean? What does that mean to the number of listings coming to the market? What does that mean to new listings versus active listings? What are the projections going forward? Why are people projecting, like the Mortgage Bankers Association is projecting by the end of this year we'll be under 6% mortgage rates by the end of 2023, and they're projecting the next year, by the end of next year, we'll be under 5%. Minimally under 5%, like 4.9. But we both know that will change the market dramatically. But we're going to take not just a a cursory look at mortgage rates. We're going to take a deep dive on mortgage rates, show you what's happened, what impact they've had on the industry and sales. We're going to turn around and tell you what the projections are going forward. And then, thank God, we have George here, our chief economist now. He has given me slides that I'll be able to share with you, showing exactly why the Mortgage Bank Association and others are projecting the mortgage rates to go down. So not only will you know what they're thinking, you'll understand the why of what they're thinking. Okay, now, how you get this information out, we talked about the listing presentations, talking to your crazy brother-in-law at the dinner table, all those ways. Another way I have to implore you to do, one thing you implore you to do, you need to make videos on this. If you already remember, you already have this. Just use it. Now, there's two reasons you might be afraid to do videos. One is you don't have the time. Well, right now, you got time. The second thing is, well, I don't really look so good on camera. Ladies and gentlemen, look up in the other corner. You think I'm doing this because I think I'm a real handsome guy? No, I'm doing it because I know it's important to do. Do I wish I looked like Brad Pitt or George Clooney? Of course I do, but I don't. But I still need to get you the information. And the two that they just worked on, which are really, really sensational, the next thing people will misunderstand about home prices. What we just covered. You can do a video on it. They give you the script, do the video, and get that video out there. Let's get ahead of the headlines. I've worked together with the team at Real Talk to make sure that that's exactly what we need to say to stay in front of those headlines. And remember last week we talked about there's not going to be a foreclosure crisis. We'll get one deep in a deep dive on that in a couple of weeks. But you have to let them know that now, because there are people out there saying there's going to be a flood of foreclosures coming to the market. Do a video saying, no, there's not. Video has already been proven as a major way to communicate messages to whoever you want to communicate them to in any industry. Take advantage. And again, the only thing that could be holding you back is, number one, you don't have the time. Well, we do have a little extra time now because it's not as busy. Number two is, I don't know if, I want to lose another 30 pounds, so I look good. Forget that. This isn't about you. This is about helping the families that you serve, whether they be buyers or sellers. They need this information. And some of them are going to consume it through video. So please, jump all over that. And next week, the 10th, whenever the 10th is, the Keeping Current Matters monthly report will come out for August. And in that monthly report, I'll just let you know. What we do is we take all the deep dives and other information, and we put it into a 30-minute presentation. Not as deep. We don't go deep. We don't go scuba diving on it. But we give you almost like a listing presentation of what's happening. A little bit of everything. The deep dives will give you a better understanding, but we'll let you know everything that's happening that you can let your consumers know. And that will be breaking the end of next week. Whenever August 10th is, you can go ahead and download that if you're a member. And I want to end on this. Any fool can know. The point is to understand. That's a quote from Albert Einstein. Ladies and gentlemen, it's crucially important right now that when we're talking to clients, they know that we understand. We just don't know what's happening. We understand what's happening. That's what these deep dives are about. Hope to see you next Monday. And ladies and gentlemen, please, if you can, share it as much as you can. Jessica, I'm going to turn it over to you. Do we have any questions?
Hi, Steve. No questions this morning, but I did just want to mention, for anybody that experienced any technical difficulties at the start of today, we pasted the link to the YouTube stream where you'll be able to go and watch the whole replay and see all the slides.
Thank you for letting them know that, ladies and gentlemen. And I will tell you, next week I'm going to stop in the middle of the deep dive and say, what are the questions? And you guys have to have questions. Don't just think of this as a one-way street. This should be interactive. So if you have any questions on any slide I'm doing, I can't believe you don't have any questions. If you have any questions on any slide I'm doing, please be able to type it in. We want to go ahead and help you in every way we possibly can. Well, until next week, have a great week. Have a busy week. Make those videos. Make those videos. Bye.